I was born in Canton, Illinois, August 5th, 1943. My father was in the service at the time, and he was heading over to the Philippines. And my mother was out there with him in Illinois. And as soon as he left for the Philippines, she came back to Springfield. We lived in Armory Street in Springfield until I was about 6 years old. My mother's father lived there also. He was Eugene Lynch, and he passed away, and we moved out to Agawam, and that's where we lived for the next 30 years or so. I never had a bedroom. We had three rooms in the downstairs part of the house, on the first floor part of the house, and none of them were bedrooms. So my father had a room called the dining room, but we never had a dining table in it. We had the dining table in the kitchen, and he had his desk there where he did his bookwork, and I had a small couch that I slept on, and that's where I stayed for the next 16 years or so. My sisters were all upstairs. They eventually became 6 sisters, and they had one bedroom, a couple of sets of bunk beds, and Auntie Kate lived with us, and she had the other bedroom, and my mother and father had the third bedroom. So that was it. I was the firstborn, and then the 6 sisters came along, and so every time Mom was expecting, we were hopeful that it would be a boy, and it never happened. So I think my father was disappointed that he wasn't able to have another boy, but that's the way it was. I was accepted at Boston College, so I finally had a bedroom. And that was really the first time I was able to live away from home. It's great to be on the BC campus, very close to downtown Boston, and I was able to get away from the house for a while and enjoy that. So I enjoyed that thoroughly. I signed up for the service in the Navy, and I had to go to Newport, Rhode Island for naval training, and it was about the time the Vietnam War was cooking. So when I got through my training in Newport, Rhode Island, I was assigned to a destroyer in Long Beach, California. It was home port in Long Beach, and it would spend. We went on two deployments over to Vietnam on the ship, but it was a very enjoyable type of setup. Being in Southern California for half of the time, and then heading overseas for the other half. And we would stop in Hawaii on the way and spend some time there, and then go on to Vietnam and go to the South China Sea, and visited Hong Kong and various ports around there. So it was a wonderful way to satisfy the service requirements, and fortunately I didn't have to go to Vietnam on the land. We were about 1,000 yards off of Vietnam, shooting at anything that would move, and we did that, but didn't really have the risks that certainly the servicemen on military service faced. I was fortunate to be on a destroyer because it had a small complement of people. It had less than 200 people on the ship. Everybody knew everybody else. There were only 14 officers on the entire ship, and each officer had his share of duty driving the ship, in 4-hour increments. And I've been to Kuala Lumpur. That's a nice place. I've been to Japan, Tokyo, Hong Kong, the Philippine Islands. Well, I liked the Far East. I liked the opportunity that I had when I was in the service to be over in the Far East. They had a situation going in New York City where they would bring people coming out of the service together with big companies in the U.S. There was a hotel there, and so you had a room in the hotel, this, that, and the other thing. And so, so you got to meet different companies on an informal basis the night before, and so for some reason I wanted to see if IBM would be interested. The IBM guy said, come into my hotel room tomorrow with a bunch of other guys, and we wanted to interview you and, you know, find out what happened. And so I went out partying. So I come back, and I'm supposed to be in this guy's room at 8:30 the next day. So I get back, and it's like 8:15, and I'm waking up, getting dressed. I hurriedly get dressed, and it's a Holiday Inn that I'm in, and there's like one elevator, and you got to go from floor to floor. I finally get on the elevator. We get to this guy's floor, so I knock on the door, because I'm supposed to be there at 8:30, and it's like 8:40. So I knock on the door, and the guy opens up his door. And he's got two guys sitting at the desks. They're both from Harvard Business School. And he looks at me and he says, well, come on in. And so I go in, and he goes through the whole rigmarole that he had already gone through with these two guys. And they give you this test thing that you're supposed to fill out, this, that, and the other thing. So I'm sitting down and I'm taking the test, and the other guys take the test. He runs the 3 pieces of paper through the scoring machine, and he comes out of the scoring machine was in the bathroom or something, and he comes out and he says, which one of you guys is Joe Kelley? He said, well, that would be me. And he says, you got one of the highest scores I've ever seen on this test. And the other 2 guys leave. He offers me a job. He says, if you want to go to work for IBM, we'd be glad to have you, interview this and that and the other. So I ended up in Springfield for IBM, and that was that. So I was very lucky to get that done. IBM had an office in downtown Springfield. One of the guys, he was leaving the office, and so we had a party for him at his house, and we ended up in a place on Boston Road, up really near where Mary's family lived, and so we show up, and there's hardly anybody in the place, and we're in there and this and that, and who comes in but Mary? And she was on she was waitressing at the time, and so she had just finished her waitress duty wherever she came from, and then she ends up in there. So that's how we met. We got to talking to her and this and that and the other thing, and she had just got off duty as a waitress somewhere else, so she had just come in kind of late. Joe came over to her and said goodbye, this, that, and the other thing, and I did too, and I gave her a kiss on the forehead for some reason. And, I got her phone number, and that was that. It was in a small chapel right on the Elms College campus, and the place was pretty well filled. We got married there, and friends of ours came from lots of places. A lot of people from Boston College came and stuff like that, and friends of ours and friends of hers. And we left the reception, and jumped on an airplane, and we ended up in just outside New York, and near LaGuardia. And then the next day we headed for Aruba and Curacao, or what's the name of it? Yeah. 9 months later, along came Joe.
To the day. So
give or take a week. We went to Long Meadow, Farmington Avenue. Then we go down to, we went to Atlanta. We came up from Ohio and did some house searching. There was this one house that was interesting, but it needed a lot of work. So it was in a beautiful location, 5 miles away from Westport and the beach. And so we bought it. And that was a good decision on our part. It was a great way to bring up children.
Why did you have so many children? 6 is a big number.
Not for me. I don't know. We never really worried about it. Maybe we should have, but we both came from a big family, and so we really didn't give it a second thought. We moved directly from Kettle Creek here in 2011. We like it here. We like it here even in the winter. It's not as harsh as it is further inland.
What would some advice be that you would give to younger generations?
Well, I think the only advice I can have is what experience I've had. If you can, find a good partner and try to enjoy one day at a time. Don't try to worry too much about what already happened or what might happen, and deal with things that come along and make the best of it. Live life to the fullest, you know. Basically, take one day at a time, right?
She is right now.
Take one day at a time and enjoy your life and have a good time.